The nitrogen cycle. What is nitrogen? Nitrogen is a colorless, odorless element. It can be found in the soil under our feet, in the water we drink, and in the air we breathe. In fact, it is the most abundant element in Earth's atmosphere. Approximately 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. How is it used? Nitrogen is very useful to the world. It is important to the chemical industry because it is used to make nitric acid, nylon, dyes, and explosives. It is also used to preserve food and during the production of transistors in the electronic industry. Here's a picture of the nitrogen cycle in Earth's atmosphere. So what is the nitrogen cycle? The nitrogen cycle is a continuous process in which nitrogen moves through both living and non-living things. Movement. Nitrogen moves through the atmosphere, soil, water, plants, animals, and bacteria. In order for the cycle to occur, nitrogen must change forms. Steps of the nitrogen cycle. Step 1. Nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen moves from the atmosphere into the soil. However, it is unavailable to plants because the gaseous form cannot be used directly in plants. In this step, N2 in the atmosphere is converted into forms that plants can use to absorb into their root stems. When light energy is provided, N2 reacts with oxygen, then producing nitrogen oxide, or NO, and nitrogen dioxide, NO2. Now, this new form of nitrogen enters as rain or snow into the atmosphere.
In this image, it is an example of nitrogen fixation and how it occurs in the soil. Step 2 is nitrification. Nitrification also occurs in the soil. During this process, the ammonia in the soils is converted into nitrites, NO2 negative, and nitrates, NO3 negative. Some bacteria in the soil can turn ammonia into nitrites, even though it is not used by plants and animals directly. Other bacteria, however, can change nitrites into nitrates, which is a form that can be used by plants and animals. This process is important to plants as it produces an extra stash of available nitrogen that can be absorbed. And here is a picture of nitrification. Step 3 is nitrogen assimilation. Assimilation is a process by which plants and animals incorporate nitrate, or NO3 negative, and ammonia, NH3, formed through nitrogen fixation and nitrification. Plants take up these forms of nitrogen through their roots and incorporate them into plant proteins and nucleic acids. And here is an example of nitrogen assimilation. Ammonification. Ammonification is the conversion of organic nitrogen into ammonia. Ammonia is excreted into the environment. It is then made available for both nitrification or assimilation. Large quantities of organic nitrogen, such as proteins, amino acids, and nucleic acids are produced.
And here is a diagram of this process, in which organic nitrogen is being converted into ammonia. First, plants and animals will decompose to turn into soil bacteria, which will then be converted into ammonia. Denitrification. Nitrogen returns to the air as nitrates are converted to the atmospheric nitrogen because of the reduction of NO3 to gaseous N2 by anaerobic bacteria. This occurs when there is little to no oxygen. Here is a diagram of denitrification. Nitrites and nitrates are turned into soil bacteria, which is then turned into the nitrogen gas, which is released into the atmosphere. In summary, nitrogen is a very abundant element and is commonly used for things such as food preservation. The nitrogen cycle is a continuous process where nitrogen moves through both living and non-living things. Step 1 is nitrogen fixation, where nitrogen moves from the atmosphere into the soil. Here, nitrogen gas in the atmosphere is converted into forms that plants can absorb through their root stems. Light energy is provided, creating a reaction between nitrogen gas with oxygen, producing nitrogen oxide and nitrogen dioxide. These new forms of nitrogen enters as rain or snow into the atmosphere. Step 2 is nitrification. This process is when ammonium in the soils is converted into nitrates and nitrites. It is important to plants as it produces an extra stash of available nitrogen that then can be absorbed. And step 3 is nitrogen assimilation. This is the process by which plants and animals incorporate nitrate and ammonia, formed through nitrogen fixation and nitrification. Plants take up these forms of nitrogen through their roots and incorporate them into plant proteins and nucleic acids. Through all of this, living things are now then able to utilize this form of nitrogen from plant tissues.